Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for you. Are you going to buy the new Xbox? No, not the Xbox One X, that's old. We're talking about the new Xbox, the one that's already being designed. That's right, according to Jez Corden, who works on Windows Central. He has sources which are confirming to him that not only is the new Xbox already being designed, it even has a code name already. So this means a couple of things. The first, and probably the most obvious, is that the hardware, at least in some level, has been decided upon. Now they might not exactly know that it will have X number of cores running at X clock speed and have X amount of RAM running at X clock speed, and it will have X, Y and Z, but what they do probably know is they have certain performance goals in mind, certain pricing goals in mind. Obviously they can't release a console that costs like $2,000 US. And of course they also have a list of parts which are going to be available via distributors and vendors at those particular times. So he believes, according to Jez, that 2 years is too soon. Now this of course is 2017 when I'm recording this, so that means in theory we're not going to see this console until like 2019 at the very earliest, but it's most likely going to be 2020, which makes a great deal of sense. If you just bought an Xbox One X, let's say essentially Christmas time, that's basically when it's being released, and then you got told, I mean you might even get it, let's say very early 2018, and then you got told 6 to 12 months later there's another console being released, like, you know, within a very short time frame, you're going to be pretty pissed. So, and there's another thing. Don't forget that this Xbox One X is pretty powerful. It's running at 6 teraflops, as we all know, for the GPU alone. What does that mean? Well, it basically means that Microsoft have to wait for technology to tick on a bit. Quite simply, they can't just release another Xbox that has a small incremental upgrade. For example, if they release the Xbox One XX, the Xbox 4, whatever it's going to be called, it can't simply be 80 flops or even 90 flops. It needs a significant performance uplift, or basically not only is it going to be seen as an incremental upgrade, but worse, people are going to think, well, how does it compare to the PlayStation 5? Because, well, that's going to be the logical question that everyone has, right? The PS5 is probably going to hit, at least according to market analysts, by around 2018 to 2019. Considering when the Pro was released, late 2016, that makes, once again, some measure of sense. And we've heard multiple analysts, including Michael Pachter, say that they believe that the PlayStation 5 is well underway with design and it's going to hit once again store shelves in like 2018-2019. So Microsoft releasing their console late 2019 to possibly 2020 makes a lot of sense. I also don't feel that this is going to be a streaming box, because people are saying, well, is it going to be equivalent to just, you know, the Netflix for games? And I don't think that's going to happen. There's a reason. One, internet speeds by 2020 are just not going to be fast enough. Like, yes, okay, you might have a 100 megabit connection, you might have 200, you might have 3. Unfortunately, you're not really in the majority. A lot of people still have very sucky internet connections. I have a friend who has a he just upgraded, excuse me, and he upgraded to like a well, it was supposed to be 76 megabit connection because he's slightly out in the, let's just say, in the bush. And basically it's only really hitting around 55 if he's doing well, if the stars align. And it's not going to get much better until the infrastructure around the UK improves, and I imagine it's going to be very much similar for the Australia, for America, for Canada. So yes, if you're in a large city, you're doing fine. If not so much in the large city, well, good luck to you. And another thing, one of the benefits console owners have for high barrier for entry is that it makes it difficult for someone else to release the system. For example, if you have what is essentially a streaming device, which, well, you know, that is what people believe the future is to be, at least in the long term for consoles, it doesn't really mean you've got a stranglehold on the market. For example, what's to stop Ubisoft or, let's say, EA or whomever releasing a device? Hell, you could have another app that's released on your smartphone and then that could just go to the TV. And let's face it, if that's the case, you don't need Sony, you don't need Microsoft in their infrastructure, because it's not like EA, Ubisoft and CD Projekt Red and all of these guys could not get cloud-based servers. They could do it. It wouldn't be an issue. So, you know, I feel that at least as long as possible, console owners want to keep that monopoly, that hardware monopoly. As for hardware, I really only see AMD being the option. Now, obviously, I don't know what the future holds 4 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now in terms of hardware. There might be projects being worked on by Nvidia, by Intel, by ARM, by whomever, that might be viable alternatives. But realistically, at least in the state of the market right this minute, I can only see some derivative of Ryzen, because obviously it can't be another Jaguar, let's just be honest. So realistically, it's going to probably be some Ryzen derivative. What GPU, what level of performance, I just don't know. I mean, I have some ideas, and frankly, this could probably be an entire discussion by itself. So once the craziness of the reviews that I've got going on kind of subsides somewhat, I'll probably put out a video for this, because I've been asked a couple of times anyway. But my personal opinion, at least for now, Microsoft and Sony aren't going to want to rock the boat. They're probably going to stick with x86. The primary reason for this, quite simply, is backwards compatibility. Sony got somewhat, well, dragged over the coals for lack of backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 3. And I do feel that in some ways it served them fairly well because of the sheer number of remasters that they've sold. Obviously, the same thing could be said for Microsoft, but to be fair to them, they've done a pretty good job of getting backwards compatibility working with the Xbox 360 and even the original Xbox as well. That's pretty cool. So, my opinion, yeah, I do believe it's going to remain x86 architecture. I think we're going to get backwards compatibility. Obviously, if you own an Xbox One original, you're probably not going to be able to play the new Xbox games on it. So it's not going to be like an Xbox and Xbox One X situation. I feel that you're probably going to get that delimitation, that hard line where, yeah, you could play older games on the new Xbox, but you can't play new games on the older Xbox. That would make an awful lot of sense, at least to me. But I want to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you think? I mean, some people believe that, you know, the consoles are going to be very 4K capable, and let's be honest, 4K adoption rates are increasing. HDR adoption rates are increasing. 4K televisions, like the new Amazon the Amazon sale that just went on. I picked up my own LG 49-inch TV, 4K, HDR, and because it was cheap, it was like just under 500 Great British pounds, so I thought, why not? I need a new TV as a spare, I'll pick it up. And I imagine, just judging from how many of those suckers were shipped, how quickly a lot of them were going off sale, that, well, this was the perfect time for people to pick those up. You've got Black Friday and all these other sales. So in those times, people pick up the TVs, and they're just ready for the new consoles. And so because of the adoption rates are increasing, you're probably going to, in a few years' time, it's going to be like 50% or whatever in the United States, maybe even eventually in Europe and other parts of the Western world. I can't really speak about Japan and China. I don't honestly know what their adoption rates are of 4K, but you know, I assume in China and Japan it's doing pretty well, in certain regions anyway. So yeah, I feel that people are going to expect 4K, a bit like, you know, kind of like a minimum. Whether that's going to be through checkerboard rendering or some other form of essentially upscaling, I don't know. And I also feel that people are going to be very, very critical about frame rates. One of the problems with these consoles, especially with the PlayStation 4, is it was very top heavy when it came to the GPU. The CPU was just, well, somewhat lackluster. And you can actually kind of tell this, because if you look at the number of NPCs, for example, in some of the games that were released by, let's say Assassin's Creed Unity, like if you look at the number of NPCs, you could just tell that the GPU wasn't the problem, it was just the CPU. It just was not able to keep up with the frame rate, and you can actually tell this just by turning on boost mode. Dark Souls as well, I'm sorry, not Dark Souls, Bloodborne. There were times when you could just tell that the system was just really struggling with the CPU, when there was a lot of stuff going on screen, and there were a lot of particle and physics effects, and you know, there was larger monsters and God knows what else. You could just feel it just drag. And obviously it was the CPU that was really the problem. So perhaps in the future we're going to see faster CPUs, which might help to somewhat off-put the balance a bit. And obviously those are going to be very critical for open world games as well, because at the end of the day, we've not even had a new Grand Theft Auto yet. We've not had GTA 6. Obviously GTA 5 is on the PlayStation 4, yes, but it was originally designed with the Xbox 360 and PS3 in mind. And actually it's a bit weird, because if you go back to the PS3 and start delving through the documentation from Naughty Dog, for example, when they were designing what is that game, The Last of Us, they actually mentioned multiple times that the SPEs of the cell were actually doing essentially work that the GPU would normally be doing, because the GPU in the PS3 just wasn't fast enough. So they basically decided to farm out some of the work to the system's CPU. It's just all a bit weird. So you had the PS3 and 360, which were very kind of CPU heavy. They had a lot faster CPU. The GPUs in both probably could have done with a bit of extra horsepower. Definitely a bit of extra RAM on both systems in an ideal world. These systems, it's the reverse. The GPU is definitely more powerful. Even on the Scorpio, one can make a very compelling argument. Yes, the Jaguar, or whatever it is inside of it, we believe it is the Jaguar of course, has been heavily optimized. The GPU has been heavily optimized to help to reduce the number of draw calls that the CPU needs to send it, and all of this other crap. And yes, it's been upclocked to 2.3 GHz, but I still feel that most likely you do, the GPU is definitely the thing that's doing most of the work here. It's definitely the more powerful of the two, at least in terms of balance. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Let me know what your thoughts are. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.